Quick question, though. We were talking about a lot of new stuff coming, and the one thing that I was thinking about today is how much does unlearning take into it? Because we're learning new stuff, but we have to untrain ourselves the old stuff, and is that why we may be failing quite a bit at moving forward? And that's kind of an open question for anybody.
Yes.
You're so wise.
Do we have a mic on?
No. Yeah, sorry.
Now it's on. I said yes. That was my answer. No, I think that's a huge part of it. I think that we sometimes don't realize the things we've picked up along the way and that we've learned and that now are habits and second nature that we do. And so we have to stop and ask ourselves, wait a minute, do I have the right habits, that I need? And that's, again, a big part. And unlearning then becomes a huge challenge because if you've got a habit that's wrong, that's, keeping you from succeeding or messing up or whatever, it takes time to break that habit and then also replace it with a good one. Right, Dave?
Right.
Oh. We need another mic up?
No, this one's fine. So the next question.
CC, you should.
I said ditto. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So from a corporate perspective, think about it like this. I'm trying to herd cats all day, every day. I just get them sort of headed in the right direction. And then Rob says to me last night, what about Vine? Are you playing in the Vine space? What do you think of Vine? So then you have to figure out, A, is that the right thing for you to do next? And if it is, then how do you convince leadership who you've just convinced that Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and those other things were the right things? Now, those are not the right things anymore, but Vine is. So it's tough.
I don't know if it's about unlearning so much as it is about having an open mind. And I think some of the things are, when you talk about habits, John, I think habits are really hard to break. I think humans are very resilient to change. And the example I give people always is if I snuck into your house every morning and moved your coffee maker, by the third day you'd fucking go ballistic. Because we don't like change. We don't like, we like sort of our lines and knowing where stuff is. But if you can at least have an open mind to stuff. So I don't know about you guys, I still blog a ton. And the reason I blog a ton is because I'm trying to call myself on my bullshit. And part of my bullshit is the reaction that I always have, which is, that sucks, or this won't work, or that's stupid, or I think I've heard that before, and this is a dumb idea. And I use my blog as a platform for me to actually formulate those questions and then write them in a way that's actually intelligent so people don't think I'm a jerk, because they know I'm publishing it to the world. And I find more often than not that when I do that, I actually talk myself out of my original thought or my original belief a little bit. And so you could quickly look at something like Vine and go this is so stupid, this is ridiculous, why would anyone do this? And then a month later you see somebody do something really creative in 6 seconds of video and you go, wow, this is actually a new paradigm shift. And you remember when Twitter first came out? I was like, why did someone take the status update on Facebook, limit it to 140 characters and actually think this is smart? It's the stupidest thing in the world to me, right? And it's until people started using @ and hashtags and figuring out how you could better communicate and share, that you start sort of having some vision. And so what I focus on is actually that gap, the gap between me thinking that this is stupid or I've seen it before or it's dumb, to that first creative thing. And I try and come right in the middle and figure out what are those steps there. And I find for myself, at least, it takes a lot of pressure off of worrying about did I change my habits or am I unlearning? It just sort of it's like empty cup martial arts. You sort of go in and think, you don't know what's going to happen, so I'm just going to sort of go with the flow.
To then add to that, or another question, the boomers are getting older, and they're the ones that are slower to change than us. Is anybody out there addressing this, or how are we, because we're communicating wrong already to the mass audience, to the largest percentage of the audience that gets older that doesn't like change? Is anyone doing it right that someone can give us an example, and then how do we address that?
Well, I think that part of the whole the whole boomer category is that you have a world where this stuff is just getting easier and more intuitive, right? So it's like, you know, we all remember the generation where it was the flashing 12 on the VCR, right? Like we were all part of that. Like I always joke, like I used to be IT and tech support at my parents' house, and then they got an iPad, and you know, now I only see them when I want. You know, it's like, this is great. And I think that you see that a lot more. Like when you, so I think technology is sort of helping facilitate that ease. But I also think at a certain age you don't really have to. I don't know as a marketer that you're going to change that segment's behavior. I think what you're doing as a marketer in that segment is introducing opportunities and providing information that might facilitate their already established things, because you're not going to truly change behavior. The big paradigms they have are computers to tablets, but most products won't have those paradigms for them.
Thanks, Trev. A bit of a follow-up to that. Communication really comes down to the difference between cargo and rails, content versus distribution. I think what you're talking about is the rails element, the technology. The boomer perhaps is not as conversant in the technology. What is the percentage of success between content versus the actual technology, the distribution?
I don't know if there's a number to that. I think that it's a case-by-case study. It's a brand-by-brand study. I don't think that there's sort of one number that you can point to that says this. It's sort of like when people say, when's the best time of the day to tweet? I don't believe that stuff. I think that what I've learned is that social channels have facilitated something I love, which is real interactions between real human beings. And I think the brands that do that extremely well are the brands that have been... Did you ask me a question just so you could take a picture of me like that? Good, John. Good. Nailed him. I didn't even know what the question was, but I'm insulted.
Drop the mic.
I'm good.
So when I look up front there, what I see is about $100,000 worth of free consulting if I ask a question. So everyone here that runs a business or has an organization, take advantage of this. I'm going to do it for the Tweetstock organization. We founded and we run this thing to better our city, to grow an entrepreneurial spirit, to solve problems, not just run businesses, not-for-profits and whatnot. You know, I'm going to ask you for our little not-for-profit business, what can we do the next step to take our vision to the next level? And hopefully I'll get $100,000 worth of free consulting out of this question.
I would stop being a not-for-profit.
There you go.
I did. Rebecca, you had mentioned earlier on... we're just going to move right along.
That's a good
Is
answer.
this mic on or no?
Adam?
It is, okay. Did you pay him to be here? You should never insult the hosts.
That wasn't an insult. That was good advice. All right? I mean, even a not-for-profit should think in terms of profit. They still have a message to get out. They still need to sell stuff. Right? Don't screw me up, Mitch. This is all going really well until right now.
It's a panel. We need controversy here. Come on, man.
Rebecca had mentioned earlier the response time went from 24 hours down to, I think, 90 minutes. Does that translate into more sales for a corporation like yourself? Or is it just answering the question faster?
It doesn't directly translate into sales. It translates into better customer satisfaction, which translates into sales eventually, or service sales at the dealership, or that kind of thing. So can I say, yes, I can prove it analytically? No, I can't prove it analytically, but we know that keeping customer retention levels higher makes us more money, bottom line. And then back to the Tweetstock thing, just for a moment. You know, one of the things that we try to do is we try to pull every lever. So have you pulled every lever? Have you involved the, local university in the activities that you do? Have you reached out to the social club? Have you talked to the Better Business Bureau? Have you done all those things within your own city to pull every lever that you can to generate interest in your organization?
And I would add on to what John was sort of saying in his presentation, which is I think a lot of people have goals and strategy, but they don't have a lot of vision. And so I would never answer that question without asking you, what's your vision?
I'll be to you next.
We've talked about vision a lot today, and I think that's really important. But beyond vision, the tactics follow, and there's a lot of questions around metrics and how do you know return on investment's happening. I wouldn't mind just hearing some thoughts on where you think that is and where it's going.
Yeah, okay, that's who you were talking about, right? I'll probably get in trouble in this. ROI is such bullshit sometimes. But let me, what I mean is, like you just said, you can't always measure a direct line between making your customers happy led over to a sale. It's not, but in your heart, and basic business, that if I have unhappy customers, I'm not going to sell more products or widgets or service, whatever it is. And one of the things that, it's a pet peeve of mine that everybody tries to measure every piece of it, justify Twitter to me, justify Facebook to me, and it can't always, while we can measure tons of stuff.
What's the cost of not doing it?
Exactly. Yeah, Scott Monty, from another car manufacturer, he always talks about, what's the ROI of putting my pants on every morning? Or what's the ROI of my mom? You just know you have to do this stuff, and and it's true. It really is. And I mean, I've worked with lots of clients, and they want to measure the ROI, and I get asked about it all the time. And that's usually where I go is, well, if you don't do it, your competitors are doing it, you're screwed. Plain and simple. That's your ROI. You're out of business. And I know that's not the answer people want to hear, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think people are afraid. The people that are asking for ROI are often just afraid of the new technologies and new trends. I spoke at a marketing conference, an AMA conference in Nashville at LP Field, the football field there, and they asked, somebody asked about ROI, and I said, well, what's the ROI of that Budweiser billboard behind you? Does that sell more beer? Like, can you quantify it? Do you know? And, but that's old school advertising, billboards, that makes a lot of sense. When I worked with Griffin Technology, I was measuring, we have an e-com side to the site. I could actually measure clicks from Twitter, visitors from Twitter that were actually making purchases on the site or Facebook. And the numbers weren't as astounding as maybe other methods, but I could measure that. You can measure a hell of a lot more online than you can, offline. So it is a question that, it is certainly a difficult one to answer a lot of the time, especially because those asking, just don't believe in it to begin with. So
I'll completely be opposite of these guys and tell you that that's all bullshit. We live in an amazing time when you can actually sit back as a marketer and use metrics that go beyond traditional. And you can sit back in time and look at something as simple as your website and say, well, I didn't get a sale, that's fine. But there are many layers of micro conversions that happen that lead down and create a funnel. And what you can do with a website when you're doing strategic multivariate testing and strategy is figure out, well, if somebody watches a video, what's that worth? Now, you may not have to put $5 but you can say, it's 5 points. It's 10 points if they sign up to a newsletter. It's this, that. And you can start tracking actual conversions to see what something's worth. You could even say a retweet is worth 2 points or $2 or whatever you want it to be. I think the challenge with it is that brands typically don't want to do the hard work of figuring out what the baseline is. What are we measuring, and what is success, and what is a conversion? But I don't believe anymore, in this day and age at least, that it becomes you have to do it because your business, there's no ROI. I think there's a very, very strong case for overall ROI if the brand themselves know what the lifetime value of a customer is, what your cost per acquisition is, and how social is competing against other channels. And some of it's going to be complementary, some of it's going to fall into customer service and other things like that. But I don't buy the whole you can't measure it or we don't know or it's ambiguous. We work with really, really big brands and spend a lot of time on frameworks and ideologies, and they're not perfect, and there's some ambiguity in terms of personal, and maybe it's a tone of voice we used, but you can definitely in this day and age create and quantify a program that would put you on a path to having some level of measurement that is over and above our competitors are doing it, or you got to be there because you got to be there. I think that those are valid points. I just don't believe that that you can't measure it, or we don't know, or it is ambiguous. And yes, Dave, they do actually know what the value is of having a billboard up. They can measure it by traffic, by who's there, by how well the team is doing. You can create metrics around that give you benchmarks that you could then compare to other campaigns to decide if that is still a place you want to engage with. Some brands will go early into things like Vine or Twitter or whatever, and they know that there's a sort of flag in the ground that they're sort of testing to see how it plays out in dynamics. But I think a lot of stuff is measurable. So even when I see reports now, I just partnered a Monetate report on e-commerce, and the net result, if you look at just the raw data, says social doesn't work. Social will not convert to dollars. But that data is wrong. It's wrong because I don't think you can compare a Facebook feed where you're engaging with consumers the same way as you're benchmarking against your search or your email. Of course, direct response is going to work better than a non-direct channel, but don't think that just because it's not direct response that you can't create a framework by which you can measure it. And if you don't believe me and you think what I just said is bullshit, do a search for Avinash Kaushik, who's an analytics guy, works at Google, and just do a search for Avinash Kaushik social media metrics or whatever it is, and you tell me if you can't benchmark against things like amplification and what's going on. Tons of stuff there. So I actually think it's highly measurable, and you should, just most brands are lazy.
I want to be Mitch Joel when I grow up.
You got 10 years, buddy.
Some of you talked about giving back to the community and volunteering and getting involved with things, and we moved a couple years ago to a new city, so we've been doing that, not strictly from a business point of view, but because it got us involved and got us meeting people. Is there a point where you should not be talking about that? Because I struggle with this on an ethics level, like where do I end and where does business start? Because I am the brand, but do I say, oh yeah, our company supports this and our company supports that? I don't want to come across as like preachy or like an angel, but do we put that message out there, or do we kind of keep it quiet? Like, where do we go with that? Just wondering.
Looking at me?
Yeah, looking at all of you.
It's a personality choice. Thank you. I think you have to decide what type of personality you are. I'm someone who's very philanthropic, but I would never want my name on anything. I know people who love their names on things, and they're extremely philanthropic, and no person is better or less than except for John, who doesn't give. No, I'm just kidding. CC told you to, though, so it's fair. It's totally fair. But no, I think that to me is part of the sort of brand personality. You have to figure out if it works. So the question I would ask back to you is, does it feel authentic when you do it? Because it feels authentic when you do it, and the people who are then coming to you will feel that authenticity and want to be a part of that type of world. If it feels like you're doing it because you think that's what's needed to get you attention, I would probably take my foot off of that gas pedal.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, it depends on who you are and what you talk about. I talk about some things I do and others I don't. You'll see people, Mitch and I are the perfect, I talk about my family constantly, while Mitch, the fact that he has pictures of his kids in his presentation is something very new. It's the choices that we each make, and as a business owner, especially if it's your business, you have to think about those things, because depending on, I have no idea, certain charities you might be involved with might make people not buy from you, depending,
That could be good too.
That could be good to know, and I'm saying it's a very good thing. And if you haven't read, there's a great book, The Power of Unpopular. But the fact, being unpopular is a good thing, because it makes you popular. That 20-60-20 that he was showing, that 20 who love you, there's always going to be people who don't agree with you. So if it feels right in your heart and you're proud of it and you want to do it, then do it. And it may affect your business, but if it feels wrong to you, stop it. I mean, you're the best gauge, especially if you're the business owner, it's your business, you make the rules for yourself. And you'll figure out if at some point, customers backlash or they don't appreciate it. I mean, you got to touch the stove sometimes, right? I mean, but if it feels wrong, don't do it. It was a Julian Smith. Yeah, totally. Touch the stove, yeah.
You all come from different backgrounds, have different stories, and they're all very interesting stories today for sure. But I think the one thing you have in common is a very high level of activity on social media. And I don't necessarily want to talk about ROI, but I want to hear why you bother, what you get out of it individually.
That's easy. I get this. I mean, I would have never crossed paths with these people if it wasn't for social media. I mean, I at least social media to me, it's a tool, and I'm a geek. I've been online as long as I can remember. I mean, I used to be in chat rooms in the old days, and back when that's all we had. We didn't have a graphical web yet. I knew you were going to go there. I was like, who's going to say it first, John or Mitch? What kind of chat rooms? No, but I mean, for me. Oh yeah, I realize that. So, but I mean, I get more. It's not like I go looking for something. It's just I share what I see, what I do, and it always comes back around somehow. You know, Mitch and I met when somebody told him, "Oh, you're starting a podcast? Call Cece. He'll help you. He loves to help people with podcasts." And we've turned into great friends since then. And I have a million different stories like that. And it's thanks to the web we live in, the social nature of the world we live in, that I've gotten to have these relationships. I've had business relationships. I've had, amazing experiences happen around the world. I wasn't going to go there. I try not to say that, but it's true, and that's why I bother. And my wife took forever to understand the power of it until she had experiences like this happen. Of course, she goes to one event, meets her, and she's like, "Oh, you're Cece's wife." People are like, she's like, "No, I'm Laura, damn it." So I mean, that's what the ROI of social for me is meeting people like this, and that I would never have crossed paths with in a million years.
I could tell you a story that sort of, I think, explains it. I used to be a journalist long before there was an internet, and I'd call editors all over the world and ask to print these stories on musicians and rock stars, and you get shot down. It's brutal. And blogging came out, and sort of the gatekeeper's gone. It's my blog. I started in 2002 or 2003. And a couple months ago, I've been writing for the Harvard Business Review every 2 weeks, and I came up with this idea for an article on Bitcoin and how I thought this idea of like virtual currency could be really profound if like Facebook or Google embraced it. Like imagine they have a global community of 1 billion people and they create a currency. Like what an amazing business model that would actually be, like a new currency, right? And so I wrote this column up, and you sort of, usually I don't know how you guys feel. I usually write something, I'm like, man, this one I wrote, and I was like, wow, this is like, I like this. I'm very hard on myself, but this one I was into. Send it away to the Harvard Business Review, and they come back and they're like, we feel like your whole area is like marketing and innovation. This sort of is traipsing into like, economics and currency. We just don't feel like, you have a PhD attached to your name, and we're going to sort of pass on this column. I sort of went back to being 19 and getting rejected from all these magazines, and I was like, wait a second, I have a blog. And like I just like literally before I even hung up the phone, I had hit the publish button, and this article took off, and it got reshared by a whole bunch of amazing places. And for me, beyond what Cece's saying, because obviously I'm just sort of ditto on that, it is an amazing thing to think that anybody in this room has a world where you can put your thoughts out there in text, images, audio, and video instantly and for free to the world. To me, I don't take that publish button lightly at all, whether it's a tweet or Facebook, and that's why when I say to people, if you follow me, I probably suck at it compared to everyone else, because I really hold back. Like I really want to make sure that if I hit that publish button and someone else sees it, I'm not just lost in a stream, but it's a value. And so for me, I just wake up every day and I'm like, I remember what it was like to not be able to put my thoughts into the world. And that is profound, and I don't take it for granted one bit. So that's why I do it.
Yeah, I'll echo what Cece was saying. I mean, for me, it's the relationships, and I just get really excited connecting online and offline, obviously, in person. But in 1980, I'm probably dating myself now. In 1984, I ran a BBS on my Commodore 64, and I ran it at night because I was using the same phone line as a BBS. Well, no, not one. No, just a regular BBS, bulletin board system for those who. Yeah. But what was so cool was that I'd have the monitor turned off, and my room would be glowing kind of red because the disk drive would just be sitting there doing nothing. And suddenly I'd hear it start to spin, and I'd be in bed, and the room would be glowing green, and I'd hop up, and I'd turn on the monitor, and I'd get it on a sysop mode, and I start chatting with whoever was using my computer. Only one person could. And I got single node, it was old school. But anyway, I got so excited by this. And then as technology, as the internet came along, and as we were able to interact with one another faster and meet more people quickly. It was just an incredible thing. And so, a lot of these guys I met on online first. So, yeah, I mean, Twitter obviously was a huge thing for me for that. So,
sure. When they came to me and asked me to take the job, and I said, I don't know why you want me to do this. The reason I took the job was because I could learn something new. I can go to the product side of the house or the internal side of the house or the corporate comm side of the house and do PR all day long. But this was a place that I didn't know anything about, and I wanted to go learn about it. So that was my interest, was to go and learn. And the one thing that I will say is that I haven't ever had anyone in 2.5 years say to me, I won't help you. I mean, we go to these places, we do these things, and people are like, hey, have you thought about, X, or have you thought about Y, or, do you really, do you think that's a really good idea? Because I think I have a better idea. I mean, people are great in this space, and, coming from the traditional PR side of the house, media are not nice all the time. And so it's a really pleasant change of pace to live in a different world where, I mean, yes, there's a lot of sarcasm and there's a little, squashing every once in a while, but, day to day, mostly people are very helpful and want to help you learn all this new stuff that's going on and share their insights and thoughts. And so it's always different, changing environment every day, and I really like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm the same way. The community is incredible, and the friendships and people that I have met that I now know in real life and hang out at, multiple times and things like that. The relationship started online. I mean, some of my best friends in the world, it started, as a relationship on Facebook or Twitter, or those kind of things. And I wouldn't trade most of them for anything. But also for me, how I balance, or not even a balance between like the time and things. I like the attention. I tweet something hoping that you all retweet it, and when you don't, I'm crying at home. That's all on you, by the way. Like, just so you know, right? When I write something on Facebook, like, I'm like an addict hitting refresh, like waiting to see, how many likes I get. So I certainly am not going to sit here and lie about that part of it. But then the other part is, you get these great friendships and relationships. Business and stuff comes from it. I mean, I don't get a book deal if it's not for social media, because the people from the publisher only heard about me and came to this event to see me speak because of social media and people tweeting to them and saying, hey, make sure you stop by, see this guy speak, and all of that. So there's all kinds of different things that you just never know who's paying attention out there. That's the exciting part to me. Like, I truly want to help people, and you never know. Like, the thing about social media, we talk about numbers and stuff, but you don't know how many people are like engaging in your message that they're just not actually replying. They love it and you're helping them, but they're just too quiet or shy or don't want to take the time to say, awesome, life-changing blog post, or, thank you for that, update, or whatever the case may be. And that's why I justify it, because I don't know who's that one person that I may be thinking, who cares about this right now, but that may be exactly what one person somewhere in the world needs to hear. And that excites me every day to be able to do that. And it's just such a cool platform that we live in a world where we can do that.
Hi, I've been online for quite a few years, and I've developed quite a sort of personal brand around myself. But I've just recently started a company, and I'm trying to figure out how to marry one with the other. And I'm thinking sort of specifically of you, Mitch, because when I think of Mitch Joel, I think of Twist Image, and it's just, vice versa. It happens automatically. So I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that and how to take my brand and take my personal brand and make them all mesh.
Yeah. Well, look, it's great to hear that, because people always go like, why? It's sort of douchey that you have like Mitch Joel Twist Image in your comments. And the reason I do that is to create that alignment, and I believe that every touch point I have with somebody, I can reiterate Mitch Joel at Twist Image. And the reason I do that is because my background in media and journalism and publishing magazines, I knew what happened when magazines have great journalists or great content creators, and how there can be an inequity. And you want to make sure, I felt these back then, I feel a little bit differently about it now, that you wanted some layer of consistency. So part of the fear that we had when we did this, I mean, we're 4 business partners. We've got, I think about 100 plus people in the 2 offices. And the whole thing from my brain was always, this is going to be a big problem if everybody who walks in the door says, we want Mitch Joel in our business. So we made a really a very conscientious effort to ensure that there was always the fact that it's not just me, and that the brand, we always say the Twist image manages a whole bunch of brands. It manages Twist Image, it manages 6 Pixels of Separation, it manages Mitch Joel, and maybe now Control-Alt-Delete, we'll see if that's the title of a book or something, it's just that. And we treat them sort of equally. We're managing those brands. And when I speak to people about that, I always tell them that's the answer. The answer is you need to figure out how to manage all your brand properties equally, because you don't want to be in a place where someone goes, well, that's interesting, because that girl who I know as her personal brand for all these years, that is the total opposite of her business, because you're not going to have any consistency across what it is. So I think you have to draw a bit of a line in the sand and make a decision as to what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And that speaks to what my good friend CC was saying. The reason why you won't see my kids or me talking about that stuff on Facebook or Twitter or anything is multiple. One is, it is me. It's authentically me. You guys, whenever you see me tweet or speak, it's me. But I don't think that personal means everything. I think I have to be personable and personal in terms of what I'm trying to do. And my line is the fact that I always said my stuff is really business professional. It's the stuff I want to create, the stuff I want to share. That's really the things that I think are of value to my community. And for me, going to the family part, that felt uncomfortable. It didn't feel like me. And on top of that, I just felt like I didn't want to make choices for my family that they can't be a part of, right? If I'm sending out pictures and all this, it's not like they're saying, yeah, we're okay with that, and let's retweet that. They're too young to know what that means, So that consistency is something you need to figure out, like what your line is, but make sure that you're consistent across the thing. Because the first thing you'll get killed on is when you're not. It's like, that's not the person I know, and then you suck. Like, again, not to talk about Scott at Ford, but when Scott joined Ford, we were friends with Scott a long time before that, I started unfollowing him. It wasn't interesting. I was like, I know Scott, like, he's not this big Ford advocate. He got a job, and that's great, but like, this sucks, It's not the guy I know. Now, as he got more and more in the job, I started, he's actually, and I started following him again. But I felt, I don't know how anyone else felt, there was a gap. There was a bit of a gap where he was trying to be credible, but at the same time, I was like, dude, that's your job. Like, what do you, there's like a bit of that. And I think he did the transition so well. Like, it's such kudos to him, because a lot of people can't do that. And so you need to find that authenticity. And he's really, I wouldn't say lucky because he did it smart, but man, making that bridge that he did was really tough.
I would just add one quick thing, that a gentleman last night, and you can stand up and wave for attention if you, when I tell the story, know who you are, came up to me and said, I follow you on Twitter, you make fun of your mother-in-law a lot, and you also tweet all this great stuff. And what's great about that, there he is in the back. What's great about that is 2 things. Number 1, I hate my mother-in-law. Number 2 is that, he mentioned the great stuff, right? Does he pay as much attention to that if there's not the occasional personality mixes in it that just makes things a little more human, a little more relaxed? It doesn't seem as like you were saying, like boring in that sense, And I think that's a big thing, is that people do want to connect with you. And so you do have to figure out those areas of your life and of your personality that you're okay with sharing. I don't talk about my parents and stuff a ton, especially like online. 1 is because they don't really know what the internet is, and 2, they're just super boring people, so like it would kill my brand. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, is a horrible person, and you've heard of her, Satan, you've heard, right? Yeah, so you know her, and so it's easy for me to put that out there because of how much, just in case you didn't know, I hate her.
I guess this is a bit of a follow-up in part for Mitch. And I'd like to get down here. And the question really revolves around. Just call me Big Guy.
That's his name, by the way, just so everyone knows, because I couldn't remember it last night. So it was Big Guy.
But you remembered it today, and I appreciate that very much. Now I'll get back to working hard. The question is, and I don't know if it's different for each of you, because you have a corporation, and then you've got brand management, and then some of you are your own brand as well. But as somebody coming out and trying to start their own business and get going, where do you find the balance between how much of your time is used on social media, not from an ROI perspective, but from when is the social just like hanging out with your friends online, and when is it business? And I'm sure it's a different line for GM and the employees there as a team than it is for the other gentlemen who do it as their brand, and perhaps Mitch from a business brand personality perspective.
So mine is a little easy. Mine is, I basically look at it and I go, it's like a magazine. I want to publish something every day. That's my sort of baseline. My baseline is let me get a blog post out every day, and on Sunday a podcast. That's my whole game plan. Everything else is somewhat superfluous to me. So I'm using it to either let people know or provoke a question or a thought, or let them know because I might be interesting because I'm sitting here with CC Chapman. But for me, that's my thing. So I actually bring to it a more of a sort of traditional publishing mindset of like, I'm just using it as that type of engine, and all the other stuff, fun stuff is the nice to haves. So that's my sort of schedule. Personally, in terms of my content creation, I usually do it at the end of the day, close to nighttime, when the sort of house is a bit quiet and I've sort of had a moment to reflect on the day. I sort of look at like hunting and gathering. All day I'm hunting. I'm like, doing stuff with clients and speaking, running around. I'm trying to think of like, what's the thing today that's going to inspire me? And at the end of the day, I use it as the gasket, just, like this little seeping gasket where I can just dump the one thing that really was on my brain.
I mean, the lines, they're squiggly, right? I love that word. I mean, I do a podcast called Managing the Gray, because there's no black and white in my world. There really isn't. It's all in the middle. I tend to, my goals, I try to take a picture a day because I'm a photographer first, I think visually. So I try to do that every morning when I get up. I say good morning on Twitter or some variation of it. It's where I start. And then, it's one of those weird things. If I'm in front of a computer, I've got social happening, whether it's actively on the screen in front of me or not, it's another question. But if I'm at a computer, I've got social happening. Twitter's there, I'm commenting. I've got Facebook up. I'm looking at things. But I'm just as easy to turn it off and forget about it for a while too, and get away from it all. But
I'm sort of good with that too.
Yeah, I'm very good with that. I'm nowhere happier than off the grid. Makes me super happy. I know you twitch, but I remember a couple years ago I went to the Boundary Waters canoeing for 7 days, and people were like, Cece, you're gonna be unplugged? How are you gonna do that? I'm like, you kidding me? It's gonna be bliss. It's gonna be great. My inbox when I returned was hell, but it's one of those things that I try not to get, but I do have those moments where I call it getting caught in the click stream, where what's going on email? What's on Facebook? What's on Instagram? And suddenly 2 hours have gone by and I haven't done jack squat, but I've liked, Jesus. Damn you. I know you didn't have to.
Just got shrapnel.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. There's no magic answer.
I think you have to find that place, right? And so like for Corvette and Camaro, it's multiple posts every day, but for Volt or for Cruise, it's not. So it really just depends on what it is and what you have going on. If it's auto show season, it's boom, 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 boom. If it's not auto show season and you have an event here, an event there, it's different. So, we have content calendars, we have planning. Everybody knows 2 here, 3 there, 1 there, 5 there. We have rules, but they're not hard and fast rules. And we adjust and go up and go down as we need to, especially around holidays and all that kind of stuff, because, we want our folks to have a life, and it's pretty difficult to have a life when you're trying to be active 365 days a year online.
Yeah, it was the same way when I managed Griffin Technologies social. I was Griffin Tech on Twitter. So for that, when I started, it was up to me whether I was going to use Dave Delaney's Twitter feed and follow Scott Monte's steps, because he had just started with Ford at around the same time I started with Griffin. I decided to go a different approach and separate the two and have a Griffin Tech Twitter account and have my Dave Delaney still, because at the time, Scott was talking a lot about Ford, and I didn't want to talk a lot about Griffin to all my friends online constantly. And Scott has really found his voice with it now. he's cracking jokes constantly, and there's, Sherlock Holmes references all the time, things like that he's into. But with Griffin, it was a tricky thing of being online all the time, because I was representing a brand that's international. Their products are all over the world. So I'd wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and check my phone and see if there's any fires or anything like that. So it's a tricky balance. It really is a tricky balance. And with me personally, I love networking and meeting people and connecting with my friends and saying good morning to Cece when he says good morning, and just say hi. And that's what I'm into. That's what I love doing. And I love sharing silly videos and crazy photos that crack people up and give people a bit of a laugh. And that's something I love doing too. So I'm ridiculous.
Oh, I don't remember the question. What was?
How do you find the balance between your media?
Like between social media or in life, you mean? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think in your case, you've integrated your social brand with your life, who you are.
Right.
It's a little different than
Yeah. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yes, that's a brilliant question. I don't know. I focus mainly on Facebook and Twitter. It's nothing against the other platforms like Google Plus and LinkedIn and things like that. Google Plus and LinkedIn are like my grandparents. I know they're there, but I forget to visit. But Twitter is easy because it's quick and I can do that a lot. Facebook, I just post, every now and then because a lot of times I can't think of something to say. But I realized just recently how bad it can be, like the addiction of feeling connected. My house caught on fire, and when the firemen pulled up in the driveway, I've got my phone out waiting to Instagram that. Dave calls me actually because I've already posted on Facebook, and I'm like, yeah, they're still in the house. Let me, there's still, you know what I mean? And everything's fine. Nobody died or anything. So it wasn't, if someone had died, that would have gotten a lot of likes and shares. That would have been, a cool thing. But it was, we didn't have that. So it was, but it was that moment also where I thought, not should I have done that or not, but did it need to be done right then? I could have taken the photo, but then waited, to post it a little bit later and let everyone know, this is what happened, kind of a thing. So I think for me, it just depends on what's going on. Being here today, I'm not on Facebook and tweeting as much as I normally would. Traveling and stuff tomorrow, I certainly won't be, either. So it just depends. But whenever that happens, I'll probably do more next week, just because in my own mind, I feel like I need to catch up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just remembered, and I think it really is finding whatever you're comfortable with. And I just was reminded of an episode of 6 Pixels from many years ago when Mitch was before it was an interview show, when you were in Thailand, I think, and walking along a beach. And it was such a great episode, and you were explaining how, some people would go to a beach and unplug and unwind, but I'm a podcast. I love podcasting, and this is what I do. And I don't know. I mean, it was such a great episode, and it was so different of you just walking along the beach talking into your mic. I thought it was such a cool episode. But
So we've pretty much come to the end. We literally have 2 minutes, and then I'm going to ask Mitch to leave because his car has shown up. But in a sentence or two, what is it? Give everybody something that they can walk away with from you.
Starting with each of us have to go?
Yes.
Well, we'll start with Mitch since he's got to leave.
That was such a deflection of the work. It was ridiculous. You got the book, read it, I do think the more that I do this stuff, the more I realize that reading plays such an important role in all of my output. And I think people are so busy trying to think of what to say, Instagram, share, do, +1 tweet, follow next, that they are spending very little time, or maybe even less time, trying to expand their horizons. And so I was in Chapters last night in Toronto, and I was walking around, and I bought a couple things for my kids, and then I bought something for myself. And I was telling the guys, I don't really buy physical things anymore. And I started again because I realized, one is I don't want these businesses to go out of business. The other thing is I think that motion of buying things to read will force me to read more, even if it just stacks up. And so my whole thing is, if you want to get better, I think listening is great and taking notes is great, but I really still believe in the power of reading. And I don't mean a blog and a tweet, I mean like a book. And spending time focusing about what it is that this person's trying to say, what does you agree with, don't agree with, and how you can take this and apply it to your life. I read about a book a week, and I can't, some books really suck. But sometimes the books that suck the most are the ones that teach you the most, because they're teaching you what not to do. Like, has anyone ever been fired? I've been fired, and it's the best experience I've ever had in terms of professional, because it really showed me also what I don't want.
I have to go next. I just made that up. That was good, though. I agree. No, I agree with you. I guess I give you any parting words, because there seems to be a lot of questions of how do I do this? Trust your gut. I mean, if something feels wrong, or whether, and it doesn't matter if it's a tool, if it's a tactic, if it's something you're thinking of starting a business about, if it doesn't feel right, or if it does feel right, if it feels like, you know what, damn it, I know I can do this, then trust your gut and make it happen. And it's not always the easiest decision to follow your gut, but I know anytime that I've even questioned, and I wish, it was funny, I was looking for a scientist about this recently. I was like, I want to find someone who's studied that. When you get that little voice in your head that says, this is right or this is wrong, I don't know, it's never led me astray. And I think too many of us are scared to follow it, whichever, because sometimes it's usually not the way that's the easiest one, Really? I should do that? But what about all this that's going to happen? But just trust your gut, and life is a lot more enjoyable, and business seems to be more successful. I mean, it's not just that alone. There's a lot more to it. But like John said, I mean, hard work. We shouldn't have to tell you have to work your ass off to make things happen. Sorry, I wasn't born with a silver spoon, and most of us weren't. So trust your gut, and it'll usually lead you the right way and not off at too many cliffs. Which, by the way, I did see on Twitter. That's the one quote everybody quoted me. Cece's going to push us over the edge. I was like, hell yeah! All right, so thank you.
I guess I would go back to if you're going to start it, finish it. So if you're going to go do it right. Don't do it half-ass, because nothing good can come from half-ass. So it doesn't matter if it's your personal brand or your car brand or your Starbucks coffee brand or, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. If you're going to do it, you got to do it right, and you got to do it consistently, and you got to find your voice, and you got to make the engagement happen and get people to come back at you with their thoughts. Because if you don't do it right, there's no sense in doing it.
I would say believe in yourself, and self-doubt is a bitch, but it exists and it's very real. And as soon as you try to write a book, it comes very quickly, and Google's your friend. Because I suddenly, aside from speaking to other authors and friends who have done that, every author goes through this period of self-doubt. And when I Googled and just looked into self-doubt and started reading a little bit about it, it's not a good thing, but it's a thing that everybody goes through at some point. So, but believe in yourself, because you can do just about anything. So good luck, John.
Crap. You all came here for a reason, and that's because whatever's going on in your business right now, you are not satisfied with it. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means there's somewhere else you're wanting to take it, somewhere else you're wanting to go. The people who are not here right now are the people who are satisfied, and they might as well be dead. Because the moment we accept life and our business the way it is, and we accept that standard of what our current life is, the moment everything becomes boring, everything becomes mundane, we stop growing, and you're basically dying at that point. So what I would just leave you with is, we focus a lot on like what our purpose is. Are we living with this purpose in our life? But I would ask you, are you living on purpose? Are you, actually raising your standards? Because if you want your business to improve, you want your life to improve and all those things, then change what's acceptable to you. Change the results that you're getting right now. If you want to make, $500,000 a year, then you're not going to get there if you've got the habits of someone who only makes $30,000 a year. So change what's acceptable to you.
And on that, how about a great round of applause for all of our speakers today?